Here's what went down Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025 on Beyond the Gates when a health scare with Peaches got to Leslie's pit. The Hawthorns continued to steer their way through the tsunami their almost parenthood caused, and Vanessa proved that the number of people she cared about was limited to one. On Beyond the Gates, Joey wanted to be sure Vanessa had just said she wanted to be his equal in his business, or at least as close as an ambitious girl could get, she clarified. The casino owner was satisfied with their current arrangement, but Vanessa grumbled that he was only getting about 10% of her abilities. "Use me," Vanessa implored. Joey shook his head, acknowledging Vanessa's sense of adventure, but warning that she really didn't know what she would be getting into. Vanessa didn't flinch as Joey suggested she tag along with Randy, who was out physically intimidating debtors into paying up. She didn't want to be another Randy, she insisted. She wanted to be another Joey. The realtor seemed cowed when Joey explained that aspects of his work were darker than Vanessa could even know, but she quickly rebounded and told Joey it was the danger of it all that gave her the high. Joey reluctantly outlined his way of life, noting that it involved degrees of risk which he had learned to be zen about. He looked Vanessa right in the eye when he said he eliminated any threat that posed itself. "I am never going to prison," Armstrong promised, "because I'll never allow anyone to be able to make that happen. Period," he finished, stoic. "Who are we talking about exactly?" Vanessa wanted to know. Vanessa remembered that Joey had once identified Doug as just such a threat. Joey maintained that he hadn't been involved in Doug's fatal car accident, and that his existence required a kind of discretion he wasn't sure Vanessa could exhibit. To that end, Joey wanted to talk about Donald, who seemed determined to know everything about what was going on. The widow McBride was disturbed by Joey implying the lengths he'd go to, remain free, and mentioning her son in the same breath. Joey informed Vanessa that she had to think beyond her own gratification. Working beside him would earn her a reputation that Donald would certainly become privy to. Given that the college student had already learned unpleasant things about his father which he hadn't been aware of, Joey worried that Donald would also lose faith in Vanessa if he gave her the opportunity she was asking for. Vanessa flared that Donald was her son and that she'd worry about him. Other than that, Vanessa wanted what she wanted, and she gave Joey a sultry smooch before leaving him to consider things. Nicole ran into Leslie and Peaches at the country club. Leslie wanted to be sure that Nicole was now going by her maiden name of Dupree so that no one would be confused when she became the new Mrs. Richardson. Peaches watched uncomfortably as Leslie continued to taunt Nicole, who didn't care whether or not Leslie married Ted. Nicole regarded Leslie as a neutralized threat and introduced herself to Peaches before she walked out. Leslie looked dissatisfied, and outside in the lobby, Nicole took a few seconds to get herself together. Leslie complained about her dinner so much that Peaches was ready to leave and have takeout at her apartment instead. When Leslie replied that she wanted Peaches to have a taste of the good life and soak in the history of Fairmont Crest, Peaches said that money didn't buy class, and that Leslie was just mad because Nicole wasn't having Leslie's attempts to humiliate her. Leslie balked, but Peaches intuited that Leslie felt less than, and therefore she took things out on other people. As Leslie argued her own points, Peaches began coughing uncontrollably. Though Leslie was desperate to get her surrogate mother medical help, Peaches didn't want a doctor and asked Leslie to take her home. At Uptown, Eva was leaving Ted a voice reminder when she overheard a young man pleading with his fountain pen to work. Eva liked to use those writing implements as well and lent him hers. He soon managed to break the pen and decided he should stop working so he could pay more attention to his surroundings. The man introduced himself as Isaiah, and Eva could see that he was studying for a test that would get him into graduate school. He admitted he was older than the average student, but went on, that one was never too old to go for a degree. Isaiah revealed that he was a counselor who helped others earn advanced degrees, and he was hoping to get work at Banneker University. Isaiah added that he was from the area, but he had just moved back from the Pacific Northwest. Eva responded that she hadn't lived in the DMV long, but that so far, her time there had been eventful. Isaiah was surprised to hear that Eva worked for her father, which he couldn't imagine doing with his own. His father would just as soon crush his dreams than support them. Eva encouraged Isaiah to elaborate, but he didn't want to dump his family drama on someone he had just met. Hearing that Isaiah's relatives had had different dreams for him than he'd had for himself, Eva let him know that she could relate. Isaiah said he was fulfilled in his work and only needed enough cash for gas, a roof, and going out with good company. Things were vibing between Eva and Isaiah when she got a text from Leslie. She had to go. but promised he could return her now broken pen next time. Leslie hurried into Eva's apartment, going over how it seemed like Peaches had needed an ambulance while they were at the country club. Eva was worried to hear how Peaches had been coughing so hard by Leslie's estimation that the woman's lungs were about to give out. Leslie had to admit that Peaches' attack had been caused by the argument they'd been having. Eva expressed dismay that Leslie had picked a fight with an old, frail, dying woman. Leslie tried to own her part in things, adding that the incident had made her realize she and Eva only had so much time with Peaches. Eva shared Leslie's torment when Ms. Thomas explained how she'd had to lay the weak Peaches, who had insisted on not seeing a doctor, flat on her back seat, and then all but carry Peaches into her home. Leslie was heartbroken that she was now the parent while Peaches was the child, and that she would outlive the mother who had raised her. Eva assured Leslie that they would navigate Peaches' illness and eventual passing together. Jacob needed a moment, finally saying that he was dismayed that Naomi hadn't told him about the pregnancy test results immediately. Naomi was honest and admitted she hadn't been ready to have another tough conversation with her husband. She was certain they were going to have a fight about their differing feelings regarding her not being pregnant. Jacob said he wasn't angry, not even about how Naomi had gone off on him a few days earlier. Naomi appreciated that Jacob was disappointed and that he hadn't yet had any time to process the news he wasn't going to be a father. He was grateful when she gave him the space to mourn. The Hawthorns began to kiss passionately, but Naomi pulled back. Naomi wanted Jacob to see that making love wasn't the answer to everything anymore. She confessed that, after her sense of release over learning she wouldn't be a parent, she had thought about Jacob and their marriage. Naomi was afraid that they'd opened up some kind of Pandora's box, and that they wouldn't be able to get their relationship back on track because of the inevitable resentment Jacob would feel about not being a father despite having been close enough to touch it. Jacob was adamant that, although he was as strong-willed as Naomi, he didn't see not having a child as something Naomi was taking away from him. Naomi countered that he was giving up something important that he hadn't realized he'd wanted just by virtue of being with her. Jacob didn't necessarily think that parenthood was his destiny, and felt that their love outshined even that. Naomi was in agreement with Jacob that they had both signed up for whatever their marriage brought them. As Anita watched, Vernon fawned over Rosamond, a socialite who had just made a generous donation to his foundation. Rosamond barely acknowledged Anita and seemed to flirt openly with Vernon. Afterwards, Vernon deemed a jealous Anita Dupree the biggest turn-on he knew. Anita corrected that she was annoyed, then coquettishly asked if her annoyance made her seem hard to get. Just as the Duprees were about to get frisky, Nicole rushed through the door and said she owed her parents an apology for inflicting Leslie on them. Anita and Vernon stood united in saying it hadn't been Nicole who had brought Leslie into their lives. That responsibility fell on Ted. Nicole felt she had been wrong to insist that Anita stop putting money into the trust she'd established. For Barbara, just because Leslie was its beneficiary, she knew how important symbolically making things up to Barbara had been to her mother. Just as Nicole was announcing that she wasn't going to let Leslie get to her anymore, the construction crew across the street noisily began again in earnest. Despite the late hour, Nicole and Anita were miffed when Vernon investigated and found out Leslie had paid the foreman extra to work into the evening. Vernon had gotten the building to stop by invoking the rules Fairmont Crest had about construction only happening during certain hours. Anita was pleased and announced that she had made the decision to stop adding funds to Barbara's trust. Both